Hello. Thank you for coming this afternoon. I'm Joanie Mackowski in the English department in the creative writing program, and it's my extreme pleasure this afternoon to introduce our guest, Marilyn Chin. Marilyn Chin is the author of 4 collections of poems, most recently Hard Love Province, published by W.W. Norton in 2014, and winner of the Anisfield Wolf Prize, established in 1935 to recognize books that increase our understanding of racism and cultural diversity. This is the first year that the Anisfield Wolf was awarded in the category of poetry. Marilyn Chin published the novel and manifesto Revenge of the Mooncake Vixen in 2009 to great acclaim, a novel she wrote, as she said in an interview, for a younger generation of women readers, my students and my nieces, they're beautiful ilk. I want to engage with third world wave feminist readers who might listen to Bikini Kill, rap, and Mozart simultaneously. Chin is also a translator and editor and anthologist. Marilyn Chin's writing explores love, loss, erotics, politics. In her writing, the political and personal are interfused and reciprocal. Neither can hide from the other, and neither can hide from the crucible of Marilyn Chin's art. Her writing explores cultural assimilation or cultural abrasion, how to write a letter to one's mother after forgetting the Chinese character for love, how to retell, untell, reform the racial, cultural, and gender-based topoi that can over-determine our lives. Chin's writing is informed by her study of Chinese classical verse and also of Irish ballads, American blues, Dickinsonian hymnal forms. Her study of traditions is not the study of the dead, it's the study of what's already living, what in her poems achieves a new, startling, and fierce existence. Her poetry is full of echoes, which she makes to resonate full-bodied, as in her poem California, with a K, a portrait of the poet wearing a girdle of severed heads. For poetry, and here I'm quoting from the poem, for poetry makes nothing happen. It survives in the Bethesda boys of its making, where bankers tweet on bows and Humvees on their backs pray for transcendence. In Marilyn Chin's poems, the words of the dead are modified in the very gutsy guts of the living. Slay me with your slumlord panegyrics, she tells us, and flip over so I can see your pastoral mounts. And blood on the altar, blood on the lamb, blood in the chalice, not symbolic, but fresh. Also in her poems, one feels the stately decorum of classical form getting penetrated by contemporary wildness, or is the contemporary wildness penetrated by the stately decorum or classical form? Consider the opening of Take a Left at the Waters of Samsara. The poem opens with a traditional seeming natural setting, but this veil slips away to reveal pulsing chaos and paradox. There is a bog of sacred water, I'm quoting now from the poem, behind a hedgerow of wild matter. Near the grave of my good mother, tin cans blossom there. The rust shimmers like amber. A nation of frogs regale, swell-throated, bass tone. One belts and rages, the others follow. They fuck blissfully, trapped in their cycle. Note the tin cans blooming, the rust shimmering like amber. What would be beautiful disrupted by pollution, degradation, but not disrupted. This pollution seems also at one with the beauty, the tin cans blooming and shimmering. This artful energy is also a generous philosophical insight that degradation and decay are themselves part of real beauty, of real life. The void created by the loss, by death, cannot be separated from the cycle of death and rebirth and its blissful fucking. It is all interpenetration. Chin's poetic instrument is a motley shapeshifter, a fusion. She reminds us that tradition's beautiful forms are not in the service of the beautiful. They are in service of the real and the now. Marilyn Chin is a rare writer who fuses extravagant formal gifts and sensuous mastery with political bite, passion, and edge. She fuses luxury with need and recalls us to fight tooth and nail for justice and also for the soul's essential luxuries.
It's so wonderful to be here, and I want to thank my friend, my dear friend Joanie, and you know, all my friends out there, Shelley and Elena. I mean, it's just it's like coming back to seeing old friends. You know, it's like, yeah, it's great. I'm going to begin with this poem. It's called "How I Got That Name: An Essay on Assimilation." I always begin with this poem because it grounds the reading and autobiography. I'm recovering from a cold, but I'm okay. Don't worry about me. I'll be okay. Yeah, okay. This is called "How I Got That Name: An Essay on Assimilation." I am Marilyn Mei-Ling Chin. Oh, how I love the resoluteness of that first person singular, followed by that stalwart indicative, a be, without that uncertain ing of becoming. Of course, the name had been changed somewhere between Angel Island and the sea when my father, the paper son, in the late 1950s, obsessed with a bombshell blonde, transliterated Mei-Ling to Marilyn. Nobody dared question his initial impulse. We all know lust drove men to greatness, not goodness, not decency. And there I was, a wayward pink baby named after some tragic white woman, swollen with gin and Nembutal. My mother couldn't pronounce the R. She dubbed me #1 female offshoot for brevity. Henceforth, she will live and die in sublime ignorance, flanked by loving children, the kitchen deity, where my father dithers, a tomcat in Hong Kong trash, a gambler, a petty thug who bought a chain of chop suey joints in Piss River, Oregon, with bootleg Gucci cash. Nobody dared question his integrity, given his nice, devout daughters and his bright, industrious sons, as if filial piety were the standard by which all earthly men were measured. Oh, how trustworthy our daughters, how thrifty our sons, how we managed to fool the experts in education, statistics, and demography. We're not very creative, but not adverse to rote learning, rote learning, rote learning. Indeed, they can use us, but the motto minority is a tease. We know you are watching now, and we refuse to give you any. Oh, bamboo shoots, the further west we go, we'll hit east. The deeper down we dig, we'll find China. History has turned its stomach on a black, polluted beach where life doesn't hinge on that red wheelbarrow. But whether or not our new lover in that final episode of Santa Barbara will lean over a scented candle and call us a bitch. Oh, Lord, where have we gone wrong? We have no inner resources. Then one redolent spring morning, the great patriarch Chin peered down from his kiosk in heaven and saw that his descendants were ugly. One had a squarish head and nose without a bridge, another's profile long and knobbed as a gourd. A third, the sad, brutish one, may never, never marry. And I, his least favorite, not quite boiled, not quite cooked, a plump pomfret simmering in my juices. Too listless to fight for my people's destiny. To kill without resistance is not slaughter, says a proverb. So I wait for imminent death. The fact that this death is also metaphorical is testament to my lethargy. So here lies Marilyn Mei-Ling Chin, married once, twice to so-and-so, a Lee and a Wong, granddaughter of the virtuous Riquin Wong and Gigi Chin, the infamous, sister of a dozen, cousin of a million, survived by everybody and forgotten by all. She was neither black nor white, neither cherished nor vanquished, just another squatter in her own bamboo grove, minding her poetry, when one day heaven was unmerciful and a chasm opened where she stood, like the jaws of a mighty white whale or the maw of a metaphysical Godzilla. It swallowed her whole. She not flinch, nor writhe, nor fret about the afterlife, but stayed solid as wood, happily, though gnawed, tattered, mesmerized by all that was lavished upon her and all that was taken away. Okay, so there are many ways to write an immigrant anthem, and that's one way. And so I decided to write blues poems. And and I was inspired by Bessie Smith. So this one is called Blues on Yellow, and I add to it that one drop of yellow blood. The canary died in the gold mine. Her dreams got lost in the sieve. The canary died in the gold mine. Her dreams got lost in the sieve. Her husband, the crow, killed under the railroad. The spokes had shorn his wings. Something's cooking in Chin's kitchen. 10,000 yellow-bellied sapsuckers baked in a pie. Something's cooking in Chin's kitchen. 10,000 yellow-bellied sapsuckers baked in a pie. Something's cooking in Chin's kitchen. Die, die, yellow bird. Die, die. Oh, crack an egg on the griddle. Yellow will ooze into white. Oh, crack an egg on the griddle. Yellow will ooze into white. Run, run, sweet little Puritan. Yellow will ooze into white. If you cut my yellow wrists, I'll teach my yellow toes to write. If you cut my yellow wrists, I'll teach my yellow toes to write. If you cut my yellow fists, I'll teach my yellow feet to fight. Do not be afraid to perish, my mother. Buddha's compassion is nigh. Do not be afraid to perish, my mother. Our boat will sail tonight. Your babies will reach the promised land. The stars will be their guide. I am so mellow yellow, Buddha sings in my veins. I am so mellow yellow, Buddha sings in my veins. Oh, take me to the land of the unreborn. There's no life on earth without pain. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Hard Love Province. In 15 years, I lost 2 boyfriends, my mother and my grandmother, and I was sad for a long time. So I wrote elegies, a bunch of elegies. So and I collected several long ones in this volume. And I'll read this one, but of course I couldn't stay sad, and I started writing some weird stuff, sexy stuff as well. But I'll read one elegy. It's called Formosan Elegy. Do you remember what Formosa means? Are there Taiwanese out there? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not Taiwanese, but I read about it in history.
Yeah, it's the Portuguese name for, it's an old name, colonial name for Taiwan. Formosan Elegy. You have lived 6 decades and you have lived none. You have loved many and you have loved no one. You wedded 3 wives, but you lie in your cold bed alone. You sired 4 children, but they cannot forgive you. Knock at emptiness, a house without your love. Strike the pine box, no answer, all hollow. You planted plums near the gate, but they bear no fruit. You raised herbs in the veranda, fresh and savory. I cry for you, but no sound wells up in my throat. I sing for you, but my tears have dried in the gullet. Walk the old dog, give the budgies a cool bath. Cut a tender melon, let it bleed into memory. The robe you wash hangs like a carcass flayed. The mug you loved is stained with old coffee. Your toothbrush is silent. Grease mums your comb. Something's lost, something made strong. Who will cry for you, me and your sister Colette? Who will cry for you, me and your Algerian sister? You were a rich man, but you held on to your poverty. You were a poor man who loved gold over dignity. I sit near your body bag and sing you a last song. I sit near your body bag and chant your final sutra. What's our place on earth? Nada, nada, nada. What's our destiny? War, grief, maggots, nada. Arms, cheeks, cock, femur, eyelids, nada. Cow, ox, lamb, vellum, marrow, nada. Vulva, nada. Semen, nada. Ovum, nada. Eternity, nada. Heaven, nada. Void, nada. Birth and death, the same blackened womb. Birth and death, the same white body bag. Detach, detach, we enter the world alone. Detach, detach, we leave the world bone lonely. If we can't believe in God, we must believe in love. We must believe in love. We must believe in love. And they zip you up in your white body bag. White body bag. White body bag. I mixed nada, which is Spanish, with Zen prayer. So now for levity, I'm going to read 25 haiku. And I'll talk to you about the genesis of the series. I was at an artist colony. I was at Yado. and these dudes were sitting, you know, I think that most of them were composers. They were sitting around, and they were having a haiku party without me. And so I decided to go back to my dungeon and write these bad girl, libidinous, anti-Zen haiku. Now, if they're anti-Zen, could we call them haiku? Perhaps not. We'll call them 17-syllable things. 25 haiku. 100 red fire ants scouring the white peony. Fallen plum blossoms return to the branch. You sleep, then harden again. Are you sure you're old enough, young man, to be in this room? To hear this stuff? I guess you are. I mean, well, you know, you're, all right. I'm always picking on this guy over here. He's got a sense of humor. Cuttlefish in my palm stiffens with rigor mortis. Boy toys can't love. Neighbor's barn grass mat, crickets, blue boy trowel handle, dress soaked in mud. Iron-headed mace, double-studded halberd, slice into emptiness. Oh, fierce goose, tie me to 2 wild elephants, tear me in half. Forceps, tongs, bushy, whip, flanks, scabbards, stirrups, goads, distaff, wither, owl. Black-eyed Susan's Queen Anne's lace, bounty of cyclamen, moan past, erupt. Gaze at the charred hills, the woebegone kiosks. We are all God's hussies. I have not fondled the emperor's lapdog, whose name is Black Muzzle. Urge your horses into the mist-swilled Galilee, O sweet Bedlamite. Her Majesty's landing up the jewel stairs to find the pleasure dome. Ancient pond, the frog jumps in and in and in, the deep slap of water. The frog jumps into the ancient pond. She says, no, I am not ready. Coyote cooked his dead wife's vagina and fed it to his new wife. I plucked out 3 white pubic hairs, and they turned into flying monkeys. Let's do it on the antimacassar, on the antimacassar. That's a real nerdy joke. Okay. Little Red drew her teeny pistol from her basket and said, eat me. Chimera, Madame Pol Pot grafting a date tree onto a date tree. His unworthy appendage, his mutinous henchman, grazed my pink cheeks. He on top now changes to bottom. Goddess welcomes her devotee. Fish, fish, foul, foul, mock me, Mistress Beancurd. I am both duck and essence. Sing, sing, little yellow blight. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Don't touch him, bitch. We're engaged. And besides, he's wearing my nipple ring. The last haiku is a found haiku. I swear I heard it. I heard one of my students say something to that effect into her cell phone. So it's a found haiku. It's a way to revive those old forms, those corrupted by by high school teachers and and by Hallmark greeting cards, right? This one's called Black President. I think we haven't written enough poems for our dear besieged president. Have you written a poem for him? No? See? What's that all about? It's a momentous thing to have a black president in the United States. And and you guys haven't written a poem for him? Okay. This one's called Black President. So it's a sonnet, it's a compressed sonnet. It's also a Chinese lyric. So, Black President. If a black man could be president, could a white man be his slave? Could a sinner enter heaven by uttering his name? If the Terminator is my governor, could a cowboy be my king? When shall the cavalry enter Deadwood and save my prince? An exo-cannibal eats her enemies. An Indo-cannibal eats her friends. I'd rather starve myself silly than to make amends. Blood on the altar, blood on the lamb, blood in the chalice, not symbolic, but fresh. Some of you were forced to read my poems and so forth. A captive audience is something you want to hear, anybody? Okay. All right, okay. Huh? More, you just want to hear more. Okay, great. And so I've been playing with Eastern and Western forms, and so I cross-dress and write fiction sometimes, as you know. And so the intermediary form is the haibun. So I've been writing this Japanese haibun form, mostly created by Basho. It's a poetic prose poem form, but punctuated by a little haiku in the end. But this one, I am punctuating the prose poem, the haibun, with a verse that you will recognize. Study hall deterritorialized. I wrote this poem for Gwendolyn Brooks. I went to this high school to give a reading, and I couldn't tell whether the students were arguing and fighting or having a great time. And it's just one of those crazy California classrooms. So, study hall deterritorialized. The brown boy hits me, but says he is sorry. The brown girl, his sister, says it's because he likes me. I say, yuck, he likes me. Well, I hate him. The black girl pinches me and says, scaredy cat, tattletale, little pussy, I dare you to hit back. The white girl grabs my Hello Kitty purse and spills my milk money. I karate chop her arm. The white boy says, my father says that your father's egg rolls are made of fried rat penises. I answer, yep, My father says that the reason why his egg rolls are made of fried rat penises is because Americans are weirdos and like to eat fried rat penises. The black girl laughs deep from her gut and high-fives me. Just as I am redrawing the map, my little fresh-off-the-boat cousin from Malaysia starts weeping into her pink shawl like a baby. Wah, 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 wah. The white girl muffles her ears. Can't you shut her up? I say, don't cry, little cousin. It's not as bad as it seems. It's verse. That's a pun, a bad pun. Okay. All right. I point to the window, and magically, to entertain us, two fat pigeons appear cooing on the sill. The boy is sitting on top of the girl trying to molest her. She is wobbling, shuffling, pirouetting under his weight. He is pecking a red bald spot on her skinny neck and singing, "We real cool, we real fools, we real cool, we real fools." I think Gwen Brooks is laughing in heaven, I think. Okay. Finally, we all laugh as one, laughing and laughing at God's beloved creatures behind this spectacle. Against all odds, from the west, a strong explosion of sun bullies through the big gray loogie of a cloud. I wanted to use loogie in a poem. You see. So, this one's called Brown Girl Manifesto, and I wanted to put extra beats to the line, to these quatrains, and there's a little rapping action here, and I have a little dig against Ezra Pound in here, so it's called Brown Girl Manifesto. Metaphor, metaphor, my pestilential aesthetic. A tsunami powers through my mother's ruins. Delta, delta, moist loins of the republic succumb to the low-lying succubus. Do. Flagpole, flagpole, my father's polemics. A bouquet of fuck you bastard flowers. Fist me, embrace me with your phantom limbs. Slay me with your slumlord panegyrics. Flip over so I can see your pastoral mounts, your sword slightly parting from the scabbard. Girl skulls piled like fresh baked loaves. A foul wind scours my mother's cadaver. Ornamental, oriental, techno impresarios. I am your parlor rug, your chamber bauble. Love me, stone me, I am all yours. Pound, pound, my father's Ezra. Freedom, freedom, flashlight tooting girls dancing on the roof of the maquilladoras. Oh, there's this wonderful character in Chinese and Japanese and Korean, in various Asian myths. She's the fox girl, and she's lascivious, she's difficult, and and in the Chinese version, she often molests male poets in the deep of night, male scholarly poets, and don't know why, but that's, and so this is an American version, and it's really about my time at Iowa City in my youth, and I will name names afterward. All right, when I sign your books, when we have a little champagne, okay. Fox Girl. There was a so-and-so Mr. Famous poet who had a bad reputation around the country for sexually harassing graduate students. The usual fare was that he would go on a college book tour, get stark raving drunk, and chase dark, exotic-looking female students. Yes, he preferred the exotic ones, and try to lure them to his hotel room. He was as well known for his gluttony and voracious appetite for gourmet food, drink, and lechery as he was for his poetry. Faux pastorals with shepherdesses and woolly sheep all over the green hillocks of Arcadia. Because he was so famous, nobody bothered to tell him that groping female graduate students was no longer cool. Nor in his acclaim did he realize that policies had been put in place in universities for such behavior. He could actually get fired. Likewise, nobody bothered to tell him that his poetry was no longer relevant. The great Norton anthology in the sky had already replaced his entries with a younger, hipper, Croatian Navajo surrealist. I know, these are all academic jokes, you know. One day, he was on the last leg of yet another reading tour. He landed on a Midwest airstrip near a famous writing program, surrounded by bean and cornfields and majestic hog-feeding operations. A young graduate student on a research fellowship was assigned to drive Mr. Famous Poet around. She was to pick him up from the airport, take him around town to get his fill of peanuts and Bombay gin, deliver him to a local bistro for supper with other writers and graduate students. Finally, her last task of the evening was to deliver him in one piece, drunk or sober, to the university to give his poetry reading. The graduate student was a little Chinese girl born in Hong Kong and raised in San Francisco. Around 5'2", a bit thin but spunky, with a confident spring to her walk. Presently, she was writing a critique on Brecht's alienation effects in Chinese acting and was finalizing an experimental poetry thesis filled with reverse fables in which little girls speak in the personas of the most hapless and vilified of animals. With activist zeal, she wrote compassionately on behalf of the pea-brain stegosaurus, the doomed dodo, and common roadkill. She mocked up an entire new vocabulary to sustain the wealth of sounds and utterances foreign to human ears. Almost as soon as she introduced herself to Mr. Famous Poet at the airport, he grabbed her breasts and said, "Why don't you and I ditch the rest of them and go to my hotel room?" The student turned beet red in the face and said, "Okay, Mr. Famous Poet, whatever you say. But in exchange, you have to pull some strings and get me a tenured teaching job, preferably in California." He said, "Of course, my influence is long and wide and reaches all the way to even California." These are such terrible academic jokes. I mean, I know we're all in academia here. As soon as they both entered the car, the girl started yelping and shaking as if she were possessed by a demon. Her long black hair volumed up into a fluffy red coat. She grew a perfect little perky pink snout and a huge, magnificent tail. Before his very eyes, she turned into a beautiful red fox. She quickly leapt onto his lap, rubbed against his chest, and climbed up onto his shoulders and bit his ear with a seductive little growl. He was mesmerized by her. Her wild fur and musky perfume gave him an urgent hard-on. A violent rush of passion shot into his groin. He was so turned on that he could already feel the sperm percolating on the bulb of his penis. Oh. Oh. Shocked. You guys are shocked, I know. Especially the Chinese American students out there. You didn't know that your auntie could be so crude. He had never fucked a graduate student fox before. Never a wild animal, a few tamed lambkins and his own cocker spaniel, but never a wild animal. So he said, hold on, little red fox, and went to his trunk to get condoms from his briefcase. One cannot know what kind of sexually transmitted diseases are harboring inside fox vaginas, he thought. I can't believe I wrote this, but... It must, I wanted to embarrass my ancestors, and here we go. When he got back into his car with his ribbed Trojans, the fox suddenly transformed into another creature. Her beautiful red fur suddenly turned stark black. In one bold stroke, a brilliant white stripe raced down her back as if it were a dividing line on the highway. The fox on his lap had suddenly turned into a 200-pound gargantuan skunk. And before he could throw her off, she raised up her skirt of a tail and sprayed a foul yellow varnish all over him. This poet really stinks. Bad puns. I am not being so much literary, but literal. He smells like he hasn't taken a bath for months. He professes that he is writing an epic, not just a personal epic of the likes of Whitman, which he deems as an inferior kind, but a classical epic of the likes of Homer, filled with gods and heroes in full regalia. Henceforth, he has no time for taking a shower and doing things that ordinary mortals do. He shall for the rest of his life traipse around his apartment, wearing a tattered terry cloth robe, inhaling hand-rolled cigarettes and drinking endless goblets of Bombay gin spritzers. With such modest talent and penis size, he shall spend his last days wrestling the ghost of Homer. The revelation of this poet's putrescence soars all the way up the hierarchical food chain. First, the small magazines reject his poems. Then the Poetry Society rescinds its invitation. The Ford Foundation formally withdraws its fellowship money. His putrescence can't be masked by huge, emblematic, perfumey flowers or grandiose adjectival phrases. Such sadness befalls this lecherous poet. He can no longer partake in groping young females because none could stand to be close to him. Nobody invites him to give readings because his epic is boring. One day, as he is contemplating a poem and delighting in a jar of sweet pickles, and as he is looking out his office window to the lawn, a beautiful little fox saunters by. Her fluffy tail arches way up like the headdress of a proud warrior. At first, he feels a small renaissance in his pants. That's a nice pun, right? No? Okay. Then he is stricken with an overwhelming fear and repulsion, putting to flight the triggering aftertaste, weirdly sweet and bitter, of nostalgia. Thank you. Yes, the dude back there.
You said you were going to give us names. Who's the broker?
What?
You said you were going to give us names.
Oh. Well, that was an era in which, it was just, which the graduate student females were they're there for slaughter. I mean, it was just a straight, that era when I don't think it's like that anymore, is it? I don't think so. No, it's a different time now. But yeah, there were those male poets, and yes, they were, it's all true. Other questions?
I wonder if you consider, or if you did consider at any point writing a poem against Obama?
Against Obama? That's a good question. Yeah, I don't. you know what, when he won the presidency, I was raw. I'm still raw. I mean, I don't know. It's amazing that we have a black man, as our president. I mean, we have a black president. I mean, that's amazing given what's the history of this nation. And I don't know why people are silent about this, but I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
How do you feel about sharing poetry with family members? Because you said something about embarrassing your ancestors. I wonder if there's any truth to that statement.
Yeah, well, it was easy for me because my mother and my grandmother couldn't read English. So, yeah, they're gone now. So, and I wrote some devastating poems, against my father because, I still have father issues because he was a bigamist and so forth. But, I don't know. I feel that I have to tell my story. I have to write these poems. They're so urgent, and it helped that my mother and grandmother couldn't read, read English. That really helped. So I just wrote whatever. But I think it is difficult. But you have to be truthful. You have to tell the truth. You can veil it in many, many ways, right? That's the art of, the art of poetry.
Well, then how about reception?
Okay, thank you so much.